Who was Ishmael, and why do we call him the Ass Man? Coming up next on DC Bible Study. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in to another DC Bible Study. I am DC himself, the Dangerous Crusader, or some call me Brett.
Alrighty then.
Now, I know when you saw the title of this, Ishmael the Ass Man, you guys are like, wait a second, this guy's supposed to be a Christian. Why is he saying the word ass? That's a 4-letter word. That's only 3 letters. But you know what I mean? You know what I mean. And when I say the word ass, meaning Ishmael the Ass Man, don't get excited, fellas. That's not what I really mean. What I really mean was jackass or a donkey, and that's how the Bible describes Ishmael in Genesis 16. And we're going to go over that. We're going to get to that verse. But for right now, just hold on to your butts.
Hold on to your butts.
Not the other word. But so who was Ishmael? Ishmael was born in 1927 BC, and that's before Christ. For all of us that think that means because, it doesn't mean because, it means before Christ. Or if you're secular, you heard BCE, which is before Common Era. And he was the firstborn of Abraham. You remember the song, Father Abraham had many sons, and many sons had Father Abraham. Well, that's the Abraham we're talking about, and he did actually have many sons, but this was his first son.
Jolly good.
So Ishmael's mother was Hagar, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about her in a second. And Ishmael is actually mentioned in the Quran as a prophet and the ancestor of the Ishmaelites, which is kind of obvious for the word Ishmaelites. Ishmaelites.
It's true.
So the Ishmaelites are pretty much, they're the Arabs around Israel and Palestine and all that stuff. That's, in theory, and most scholars say, is the offspring of Ishmael. Sarai is her name, but in English it's Sarah. So I'll switch back and forth between Sarai or Sarah. And she couldn't get pregnant. She was the wife of Abraham.
Why are you crying?
Abraham was promised by God that he was going to have many sons, that his offspring would number the sands on the beach.
Ow! We should have brought shoes.
Sarai, or Sarah, she couldn't get pregnant. She was barren.
Doctor explained that her insides were a rocky place where my seed could find no purchase.
In Genesis 16, verse 1, part A, it says, Sarai, Abraham's wife, had borne him no children. And this was very upsetting for Sarah because she was like, well, he was promised by God that he was going to have all these descendants and have all these sons, but here I am, I can't get pregnant, so maybe I'm not a part of that plan. So Sarai decides to offer Abraham up her slave girl, and her slave girl was named Hagar. Genesis 16, 1b to 2a, it says, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So she said to Abram, the Lord has kept me from having children. Go, sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her. Now, I don't have to tell you this, guys, but this might have been the first trap in the history of the world.
It's a trap.
You know, and guys, don't fall for this. If your wife's like, hey, maybe we should do this and this and this, you better say no. Because not only is that wrong in the eyes of the Lord, but listen, your wife's tricking you. Don't do it. There's nothing good that's going to come out of that.
Stupid man! A stupid man!
But Abraham, of course, not knowing any better, he accepts and impregnates Hagar. Now he's in trouble. I'm going to tell you right now, he's in trouble.
This is the worst.
So in Genesis chapter 16, verse 2a through 4a, it says, Abram agreed to what Sarai said. Dummy. So after Abram had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai, his wife, took her, the Egyptian slave Hagar, and gave her to her husband to be his wife. He slept with Hagar and she conceived. So boom, right out of the gate. Sarah said, well, you can have my slave girl, but you're going to marry her. And we'll see if it's really me that can't get pregnant or if it's you that can't impregnate me, Abraham. So Abraham, the first time out, he hits a home run. Good for him. Long run, not good for him.
Not a great plan.
And what happens in women's fashion, and let me tell you something, it goes the other way too. Men would be the same way, but Sarah despises Hagar because now she's pregnant. In Genesis 16, 4b through 5, it says, when she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Then Sarai said to Abraham, you are responsible for the wrong I am suffering. I put my slave in your arms, and now that she knows she is pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me. What'd I tell you? Listen, the grass isn't greener, dude. The grass isn't greener, guys. Run away from that. But Abraham, he did what Abraham did, and he impregnated her. Now there's trouble in the hen house. That's all I'm going to say.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
So what does Abraham do? Instead of taking that responsibility and say, you know what, you're right, I impregnated her. Now Hagar doesn't like you and you don't like Hagar. Let me see if I can figure it out. Abraham, he decides to put the ball in Sarah's court. He says in Genesis 16:6, he says, your slave is in your hands. Do with her whatever you think is best. So then Sarah mistreated Hagar, obviously. So she fled from her. So Hagar, she packs up and she runs away. So because of Sarah mistreating Hagar, Hagar's like, I don't need this. I'm going to get up. I'm going to go. I don't want to be treated like this anymore. I'm pregnant. My ankles are swollen. My stomach hurts. I'm craving pickles and ice cream for some reason. And there's no refrigeration here. She didn't actually say that, guys. This is me just riffing. I'm a riffer. So Hagar, she runs away. During that time when she ran away, she was confronted by God. And in Genesis 16:7 and 8, it says, the angel of the Lord came to Hagar near the spring in the desert. It was the spring that is beside the road to Shur. And he said, Hagar, slave of Sarah, where have you come from and where are you going? And then Hagar says, I'm running away from my mistress, Sarah. Now, do you think that God actually didn't know what was going on? That God was looking down on earth and said, hey, what's Hagar doing down there? What? She's supposed to be... Hey, Hagar! No, that's not what he knows. He knows. He always asks questions to the answers he already knows. And that's twofold. Number one, he wants to see if you're going to be honest with him. And number two, he likes the conversation. He likes the relationship. So he does. He says, hey, what are you doing over here? Why aren't you with your mistress? Why aren't you with your master? And then in Genesis 16:9-10, the angel of the Lord said to her, go back to your mistress and submit to her. The angel added, I will increase your descendants so much that they'll be too numerous to count. Wow. So here she is, Hagar, she's pregnant. From what we know, she doesn't have any other children. And this is her first one. She runs away because she's being mistreated. God comes and say, hey man, listen, Hagar, go back and endure all that stuff that you have to endure, because right now it might stink. Right now it might suck. And in the military, we have this mantra. It's called embrace the suck. And some of you guys might know what that means. Some of you guys don't. That just means even though there's a sucky situation, there's a horrible situation going on, we kind of laugh through it because we embrace it. It's like, yeah, this stinks, but we're going to get it done because we're together. And hey, we're going to laugh the whole time through it, even though it sucks. So God tells her to go back and says, not only are you going to go back and embrace the suck, because you do that, I'm going to reward you with so many children, so many descendants that you won't even be able to count them. And those of you that look in the Middle East, that know Middle East history and stuff, there are a lot of Arabs. A lot of Arabs, and they're all over the place. They're too numerous, and scholars theorize and suggest is that those Arabs have been the descendants and go all their line is traced all the way back to Hagar and Abraham. And it actually says that in the Quran as well. Quran, tomato, bologna, Fragostonia.
Stop it.
So God, here's where the ass man comes out. God describes her son Ishmael. And he describes it in Genesis 16:11-12. And it says, the angel of the Lord now said to her, you are now pregnant, and you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. There you go. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. He will live in hostility towards all of his brothers. So this is a prophetic word by God. And God's not saying, hey, he's going to be the peacekeeper of the world, and he's going to be rich, and he's going to be this. He's going to say, no, that's not what he says. He says, your son is going to be a wild donkey of a man. He's going to be stubborn, and he's going to go after everyone, and everyone's going to go after him. He's going to make it hard on these people. And at that point, I'm sure Hagar, feeling that she's been mistreated and wants to see Sarah and Abraham being mistreated because of all the misery she's focused on, she's probably like, heck yeah, payback time. And that's exactly what happens. Abraham names Ishmael. Abraham gave Ishmael his name. He said in Genesis 16:15-16, so Hagar bore Abraham a son, and Abraham gave the name Ishmael to the son she had born. Abraham was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael. So 86 years old. I'm half that age, and if I had a new baby right now, I'd probably brush my teeth with a Colt 45, if you know what I mean. Don't do it. If you're thinking about it, go get help, okay? We're just kidding here. We're just playing around. Remember, guys, embrace the suck. So Ishmael, he grows up, and him and Isaac, which is Abraham's next son, which we're going to talk about next week. Abraham and Isaac, they never got along. Ishmael would make fun of Isaac and stuff like that. But Ishmael died at the age of 137 years old. So in Genesis 25:17, it says, Ishmael lived 137 years. He breathed his last breath and died, and he was gathered to his people. Now, in that verse alone, you see he was gathered to his people.
Regulators! Mount up.
And Ishmael was survived by his 12 sons. So, and that's 137 years old, and that's 12 sons. And those 12 sons were about to go out and just spread their seed everywhere, and they were just going to multiply and multiply and multiply.
What?
And that's pretty much the story of Ishmael and what happened to him and his mom Hagar, and how we became in this situation where it's Israel and the Jews. And then you have the Muslims and the Arabs surrounding Israel, and they're always fighting. It's over 1,000-year war, and this helps explain a little bit where it started. Now we're going to do this segment, The Dangerous Take, and that's going to happen right about now. Far too often in life, we expect God to answer our prayers on our timeline and fail to recognize that God's timing isn't ours. Like Gandalf the Grey once said, a wizard is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to. We lay our heads down at night or bend a knee in the morning and lay out our wish list to our Creator without realizing that we never ask the Lord what He wants from us. There's a whole religious movement within the umbrella of Christianity that tells us that if we want it, we can have it. These fallacies, like The Secret, pushed by Oprah Winfrey, and Joel Osteen's Live Your Best Life Now, that are not just sending the wrong message to our new or stagnant believer, but are setting these followers for disappointment and possibly sending them straight to hell. Now, I don't have to sit here and tell you about the darkest pit in hell that's reserved for these false teachers, but those spots, if they don't repent, are reserved for them. This is why it's so important to understand that the Lord knows what's best for us. And just because He doesn't answer your prayers in a timely fashion, it doesn't mean He's ignoring you. It just means that maybe, just maybe, He's got something better for you down the road. So before you throw your hands in the air and decide to take the bull by the horns and make your prayer wish list come true, remember the lessons of Abraham and Sarah and wait on the Lord. I promise, if you stay faithful to the Lord will be faithful to you. It might not be what you expect or want for that matter, but it'll be what you need. And that's my dangerous take. And now I'm going to do things to take away segment, and this is where I basically give you 3 or 4 things that I want you to remember as you go throughout the week, and we're going to start that right about now. All right, things to take away. Number 1, prayer isn't an Amazon package to be delivered within 2 days of your order. Prayer being answered takes time, and it takes time for a reason. Guys, we are so mixed up in this microwave society where if we want a steak, we throw it in the microwave, we put 5 minutes on the timer, and boom, we get ourselves a steak. But we're forgetting that this is not how the world works, and this is not how the great majority of history, human history, has worked in our time. Things that are worth it takes time. And don't look at your prayer list, your wish list, as an Amazon package. The second you pray for it, you should get it within 2 days if Amazon's on the ball. That's not what it's about. God knows what you need, when you need it, and God's timing is perfect. And remember that. Things to take away. Number 2, sometimes the Lord answers your prayer by saying, wait. It's smarter for us to listen to Him and not try to answer it ourselves. You know, there's a song that Garth Brooks sang years ago. It might have been 20-something years ago. That's how old I am. But he put in a song, and he said, in his song, it's called Unanswered Prayers. I take issue with that song only for this reason. Even though it's a beautiful song, God never leaves your prayers unanswered. He might say yes, He might say no, and the great majority of the time, He says wait. Not just because He wants to make you suffer. He doesn't want to make you suffer. He wants you to grow. before he answers that prayer. And sometimes during that maturity, during that journey that you're going through for that answered prayer, sometimes you realize through faith in God and scripture and praying and having that relationship, sometimes you realize, oh, you know what? I don't need that prayer. What I've been praying for so long isn't what I need. I don't really want it anymore. So God always answers your prayer. Always. It's either yes, no, or wait. It's never he left it in his inbox, or he saw your text and then he was going to text you later and completely forgot. That's not how it works. So remember that. Sometimes he says wait. Takeaway number 3. We need to remember the Lord is faithful and won't leave you standing in the rain. Trust in the Lord, have faith in the Lord, and remember that the Lord's timing is perfect. I've been saying 2 things during this whole DC Bible study journey. Now, 2 things that I say, and I really want to harp on, is to be obedient and that the Lord's timing is perfect. We only see this much ahead of us. The Lord sees everything. He sees all things. He's omnipresent. He sees everything. He hears everything. He even knows your thoughts. So he won't leave you standing there. If you're faithful to the Lord and you're keeping that relationship with the Lord, he won't leave you standing in the rain. He's going to put you on a journey that you need, and the end result will be for his glory. And that's what it's about, guys. It's about having faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. It's about loving him and following him and being obedient to him, and to tell others about the good news of Christ and him crucified. So remember that, guys. Stay faithful. The Lord's timing is perfect, and he'll never leave or forsake you. And that's all I have to say today. Guys, thank you so much for joining me on another DC Bible study. I'm almost at 500 followers, and I'm really hoping that I get to that 500 mark, and I can't do it without you guys, and I thank you so much. You don't know how much this means to me that you're able to sit down and fellowship with me and get a little bit of Bible studies going on here. So thank you so much once again. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, guys, be dangerous, love God, love people, love you.